because constantly in the press we hear this is a prison, that this was going to be a warehouse for homeless. I think, as you can see, there are no cells here. It's an amazing facility, built 20 years ago at a cost of $58 million. My gut sense is, with the interest expense and servicing that debt, this has probably cost the taxpayers probably close to $100 million. Now, when we bought this facility, we bought it for the land value. One of our businesses in my real estate business that my father founded 68 years ago is the warehouse business, and we have millions of feet of warehouses in 6 western states, including projects right down the street here. But having seen the facility, I thought before it would be torn down and built another warehouse, that it just begged to be repurposed. The first call I made was to Homer Williams, an old friend who's been an amazing developer. He helped create Forest Park Estates, the whole Pearl District, very visionary. He's devoting his life now to the homeless and helping those in need. The second person I called was Kay Turan, who will speak to you in a few minutes. I've known Kay for 30 years. I think she is one of the best executives in the state, and especially we're lucky she's in the nonprofit area. Volunteers of America is a $23 million a year operation, and when they were nice enough to award me a Jimmy DePriest Award some years ago, I visited their alcohol drug rehab program. I visited the after-school program. I visited the juvenile delinquent program. They're a proven provider, knows this world, okay? And when she came and looked at it and said, as well as Homer, that this could be repurposed, that gave me hope. Without the professionals telling me that, I would have said, you know, I'm pretty good in the arts. There are a lot of areas that I think I have national expertise in, but while we have funded a lot of providers of alcohol, drug, Forward Stride with autistic kids, New Avenues for Youth, you name it, that's different than really knowing the intricacies of how you deal with people on the street that need medical, psychological, job training, and so forth. But when professionals in this industry said, this is too good a facility to tear down, that gave me hope. Unfortunately, after 18 months and some amazing proposals, okay, we still have not gotten anything in writing that lets us sign on the bottom line to do a lease. We'd lease this for $1 a year, okay? We don't need to make a profit on this, okay? You look at this room right now. Last year when our mayor, correctly during the winter, called out for real estate owners to see if there was any vacant space, we offered 2 buildings downtown. But after they looked at them, we didn't have showers and bathrooms. You look right now behind us here, okay, there are showers, bathrooms. There's a kitchen here that could feed 1,000 people a day. There are recreation rooms. There's light. There's their ability to put beds up here with their own cubicles. Okay? There are recreation areas. There's intake areas. Radiology, dental, medical. Okay? This facility has been designed fabulously to serve different population groups. But after 18 months, and we've carried about $1.2 million of costs, we have no choice but to say, that's it. Whether I voted too much with my heart, because even today walking through this, I'm sickened that this is going to be demolished in the next few months. Does that mean if someone in the next 2 weeks before we sign a demolition contract comes through with something I can sign, we stop the demolition process and have it repurposed for the community? These are images of the wonderful warehouse we're going to build, and if we can't repurpose it, at least we'll build a warehouse. The Port of Portland's industrial park here has created thousands of jobs, and there'll be hopefully several hundred people working in the 320,000 warehouse that we would start construction in about 4 or 5 months and have done in about a year. I can't tell you how much I appreciated all the people that came forward with ideas. There was a group from Eugene that has a trial project down there for folks on the street that are at the level of hospice care. And they've got a 25-bed facility, people that are, the doctors say, have 3 to 6 months to live. Right now what they told me is, they collapse on the street, police come and get them, take them to a hospital, or they get the ambulance goes to the hospital, a day later they're released, 3 days later again. They gave us all the cost figures of what this is costing you and I, all the citizens, in terms of the care, let alone the lack of dignity for people with those last months of their lives. They wanted a wing. I said, that's a fabulous program, but what do I do with the other 8 wings? And I wasn't able to say, well, you take a wing, you take a wing. If a K-Turan took the project or someone big enough, then they could work with transition projects, Central City Concern. The Catholic Church wanted 50 beds. We've had a number of people come to us, but we were not able to cobble enough of that together in one package to have a main operator of the facility. There's a man in town, John Niemeyer, known well, a real estate developer. He said, Jordan, how much do you have in this? I said, we're up to around $7 million. He said, what if I matched that? Could we just operate it ourselves? I said, John, that's an incredible contribution. I said, but this is something, if this were a 40 or 60 bed facility, maybe we just do this on our own and call K-Turan in or someone. But this is like a 500 person kind of facility. It's too big for, you know, we're proud of what we do in our foundation and the money we give away, but this is bigger than what we could handle alone or one or two of us. It needs the kind of Volunteers of America, those kinds of organizations that know what and where and how to deal with different population groups. The last thing I'll mention is in terms of the homeless, I think there are so many misnomers about that group. We lump it into one word. And as we all know, especially all of you reporters, there are many different segments of people on the street. When the state closed Damish years ago, that unleashed a number of people that need mental health services. There are young people that like the shtick of being on the street. There are people who have, you know, lost their way and need a helping hand to get back in society. It was never the intention that this would serve all those groups. Maybe it's not right for many of them, but it certainly seemed appropriate for some of them. This last week, our office is on 12th and Salmon. On 12th and Salmon, in the last 10 days, on the parking lot around our office, Steve, our wonderful guard, I was walking in and he showed me this. This is a box of, last week there were 8 needles he found on our parking lot. Okay. Right now there are 2 tents there. I must applaud the police. They are fabulous. They always respond within a day. But it breaks my heart when they have such limited tools as to what to do with these folks that they're not equipped and trained to deal with. These aren't criminals, although there probably is a fair amount of criminal activity in terms of the drug users and so forth. So with that, let me answer a few questions, and then I'll turn it over first to Kay and then to Daryl, and you'll be able to ask them a lot more specific questions about dreams and goals that they may have had for the project. So any questions?
Excuse me. What's the disconnect between the city and the county? There definitely is one involved in this. The mayor a couple of weeks ago said, and it was in referring to Wapato, that if the dollars were right and the plan was right, he would look at it without a question. So what's happening? What's wrong?
Well, I think I've known Mayor Wheeler for a long time. As I've said, I think he is very smart, integrity, above reproach, well-educated. I think it's a complex situation being a mayor of our present city council. That's a whole other discussion. The last communication he had with me about this was, well, show me the sources and uses of funds for it. And I called him back and I said, Ted, that's not my job. Okay, I'm sitting here as a real estate owner saying, I'll lease this thing, cover my carrying costs, even $1 a year, I'll subsidize it, whatever. This is where there needs to be a partnership between the political leaders, the on-the-ground providers, okay, plus all of us as citizens.
The county and the city say they have between $70 and $80 million to put toward homeless.
Some of those questions, I think, are better answered by Kay and Daryl and others. I think most of us citizens applaud all of the wonderful providers we have in this community. When I was on the Citizens Crime Commission, we did a study of homeless youth, and there were 47 providers. And there was some inconsistency, and some of them made it easy for the kids to be on the street. Some wanted to get them back into school with their families. This is 10 years ago. We went back with a recommendation, hey, county, pick one philosophy, and I think they changed their funding approach. There are wonderful entities right now that take care of thousands of our neighbors and friends every day. That we appreciate all those professionals that aren't here, that are on the ground working with treatment programs and so forth. The issue isn't whether nothing's being done. The issue is not enough's being done.
And why isn't it being done here? That's the question. What would you tell the citizens of Portland? What's the excuse for not using this?
I guess if you asked me if I was one of the political leaders, the speech that I would love to hear one of them tell us would sound something like this: that we've lumped all these homeless people into a category. These aren't nameless faces. These are somebody's kids, somebody's grandfather, grandmother, aunts, uncles, neighbors. These are us, not somebody else. Okay? And for us to sit by and let our friends, our neighbors, our citizens that grew up with us, be on the street, needing mental health services, drug rehab, alcohol rehab, okay, is a travesty. Okay? It should hurt all of our hearts. At the same time, as a real estate owner, my heart goes out to our tenants downtown, where they're tired of coming into work every day and seeing a sleeping person on their doorstep, seeing someone defecate right in front of customers coming in. We're big supporters of the symphony. Of course, my mother's name is on the symphony hall. To hear them tell us that a number of their subscribers are canceling because they don't want to come downtown at night and have to deal with the hassle of all the homeless people. To have friends come from out of town and say, boy, we've heard all these wonderful things about Portland, voodoo donuts and all these things, and my God, your homeless problem. Not that Seattle, not that San Francisco, not that LA doesn't have similar problems. Okay? So I think it's heartbreaking, and I think the biggest issue for all of us as citizens is we don't live in Mexico City. We don't live in India and see all those slums. We don't live in Brazil. I don't know what that would be like. I've never been to those places. But on one hand, you can't help to find yourself getting hardened when you see these folks constantly in your face. And that's probably the worst result of this issue, okay? That where are our values, okay? How can we be compassionate and feel we care about each other when we let those in need sit there in a horrible state, okay? But the problem is, a number of people came to me and said, we'll give you $10,000 a year, $25,000 a year, $50,000 a year. But this is too big a project for Jordan to say, okay, I'm going to pull this all together and so forth. We need that political leadership to stand up, okay, and not criticize Wapato. Now, look, maybe they're right. Maybe Kate Turan, maybe all the providers that have come out here that are scared to criticize the political system because they get their funding from them, maybe they're all wrong. I've never come here in an arrogant way and said, I know what this should be. What I did do is call professionals who deal with these people every day and ask them their opinion. And if they felt they could develop programs here that would help those aunts and uncles and grandparents and kids and nieces and nephews and neighbors, then I felt this facility needed a chance to prove that out. Unfortunately, with as much effort as they've made, we can't seem to get that alignment of the political, the provider, and us public together. We've had probably 150 just citizens come through here, and every one of them consistently has said, I don't get it, I don't believe it. Now, what's interesting about the county is, in terms of the county leadership that does a good job on many things, the current chair and county commissioners, they weren't at fault. They weren't here when this was created. So they can't be blamed for it being built. As to what role they should have taken, the mayor should have taken, the governor should have taken, they all seem to be doing their best, and for their own reasons, they don't seem to like this facility. I think they'd like to see this just torn down and out of sight and out of mind. I think, on the other hand, if any one of them or all of them together, right now we should have the mayor, the chair of the county, the governor right behind me saying we've come together and we're working with Kay and Central City Concern and Transition Projects and the University of Portland, OHSU and Portland State and Reed and whatever, and we're going to make this work. But they're not seeing it that way. I'm not being critical of them. As a citizen, I'm still aghast walking in here as I did this morning and seeing this thing and thinking this is all going to be rubble in 2 months. But maybe they obviously have a different vision. And again, part of that's better answered by some of the other speakers.
Jordan, your family's had a long history of philanthropy. Is it hard to let go of this and the potential of what you see in this building?
Well, speaking of junkies, I am one. I mean, most of my career, I've given you bios, I've been on 30 boards. God, if there was a cause there, I couldn't say no. And I'm proud of what I've done. Not only did I get to meet so many wonderful people on these boards I might not have otherwise met, but you know, it's interesting in business. I've worked since I was 14. I started off as a janitor, and I've worked real hard, and we've been very successful. I'll never forget my grandfather, Sam Schnitzer, growing up in the Ukraine, lived in a hut with a dirt floor. Okay, we're as lucky as anybody else to have been in this country. Okay, and I've worked hard on all these nonprofits, and I've been proud of that. And there's a need for everyone to volunteer, whether it's an hour, a week, whatever. You get so much joy from it. But this one continues to break my heart coming in here. So I have an internal battle of my heart saying, no, give it 6 more months, give it 8 more months, 12 more months. My mind is saying, you got to put a stop to it. We're better off sending a check of $50,000 a month to Volunteers America than paying the interest expense and taxes and maintenance of the building. Breaks my heart. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for bringing the team that you have brought together. I was wondering, have we had a chance to put the problem on its head? And what I mean by this, if the political will does not give us leadership, can we create the leadership from within and from the basis? And then I'm going to start with one question. How many of you here, if you were homeless today, would agree to stay here tonight? I would have no problem. And I could bring my $1,000 a month that I'm getting to live on right now. And I could live here with $1,000 and help create this, what it is, what it can become. With the leadership of the organization that you're doing.
Well, as I said, this was, the announcement here today is we're moving in to tear it down. It's not that we're trying to blame anybody. It's we're trying to say that, you know, we've spent enough time trying, and how much respect I have for all the organizations that have come forward to try to make it work. The answer as to why it hasn't is everyone's opinion. As I mentioned last year when the mayor called around for real estate folks to offer some spaces when it was freezing out, they rejected our spaces because we didn't have the showers and bathrooms that are just sitting here. We got the plumbing, the heating, the roof, the exercise areas, abused women and kids for a couple months taking respite. Classrooms could be made here. I mean, you've all walked through this. I mean, it was built really well with your money, okay? And I think it's sad. Maybe the political powers that be are right, and this is the wrong facility in the wrong place. Maybe. You'll hear from others that probably disagree. And as I said, if someone comes forward with something, we'll stop the process, because it just would feel good to see that old thing about lemons and lemonade. I mean, whether this should have been built, whatever, obviously with it not being used for 20 years, probably wasn't the best use of public money. The greater travesty is tearing it down while you're still all paying the debt service on the bonds from 20 years ago. Another question? Yes, sir.
What do you see as the end use of this? Is that the e-commerce fulfillment center? And if so, what's the demand for that? Do you have any agreements with potential tenants?
Well, the industrial warehouse business is the biggest part of our real estate business, and we have offices in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Sacramento, Las Vegas, and San Diego, and properties in a few more cities. We tend to like smaller tenants that create more employment. This probably will be a 2-tenant building. Usually a building this size, we would have more like 8, 10, 12, 15 tenants in, but in this location, with the way this is designed, it probably be a bigger tenant, and probably employ 30 to 100 people, whether it's fulfillment or manufacturing or distribution. We have 4,000 tenants, and there isn't a business activity you could imagine that we don't serve every day in our buildings.
Is there any hope? Did you guys reach out to, dare I say, the federal government?
There's been some discussion. State Senator Betsy Johnson, who I admire so much, has said, well, come to the legislature, we'll get you some money. Well, and she's, done a heck of a job in the public sector, but that'll take another year. And what if that doesn't happen? And I think our legislature is, doing the best job they can, but that's a bit unpredictable. So I'm in this for another $600,000 or $700,000 of holding costs, and then I look back and say I was really stupid. I mean, I'd rather this money. I mean, we're lucky to give out millions of dollars a year to nonprofits. I'd rather see the money going there than just paying the interest expense and debt service and the taxes and gardening and maintenance and utility costs for the building.
Maybe like this point. I mean,
Yes, sir. That takes, I think, if we had the kind of people behind us that said, we'll cobble together, we're going to go to our state or U.S. senators, we'll try to find some funds, whatever. The question was asked earlier about the city funds and so forth. I don't quite know where they're going. They seem to be starting a few projects. I think on every nonprofit I've been on, we've had a vision where it would have been easy to have said, we'll never accomplish this. And one of the city commissioners said in an article in the Oregonian last year, well, you know, Jordan talks about a dream and we have to deal with reality. Well, I wanted to say to her, in my business, every day I wake up dreaming. Every nonprofit I've been on, dreaming. Look at the Japanese garden. When I got involved when I was 27 years old, we had 8 employees up there. Now they have 500,000 people. Steve Bloom's doing an amazing job raising more money than I ever could have imagined. When I was asked to get involved with the Middleman Jewish Community Center and the Portland Jewish Academy, they had $2.8 million of debt, a projected $900,000 operating deficit. I saved it, had to shut things down, brought a crisis manager in. 20 years of the Astoria Column project I've been on dozens of boards where it's not just been nice, you get on and you know you're there for 3 years, and where I've had to roll up my sleeves and fiscally and managerially reposition things and so forth, and I've loved it. Okay, and therefore there's no reason why when I started on this project it was a dream, and I thought with the people I brought in were the best in the community doing things, and I frankly am flabbergasted we hit such a wall on the political side. I would think if I wanted to be governor, I'd be sitting here, whether I was Ted Wheeler, Deborah Kafori, or whoever else, sitting here saying, hey, I'm pulling together a team, we're going to make this work, we're going to get people off the street. My God, the publicity they would get from all of you and the thanks from every citizen in this community, I think it's a natural. But they somehow see this project as anathema that just should be, get it out of our sight, out of mind. And fine, this goes away. I guess if we tear this down, there should be a call to action by all of us. I say again, the best things I've done involve the private sector, professional organizations, and the public sector coming together. If we look back on this community, some of the best things that happened were when Neil Goldschmidt was mayor. He brought in lots of private sector people and had commissions. Vera Katz did a heck of a job. Okay. Today, for whatever reason, at the city, county level, even the state level, I don't see the politicians reaching out to the private sector and saying, here, you folks are smart, okay? Tell us how we should solve this problem. It's bringing us all together. None of us have all the answers all the time. Okay? That's where we come together, and out of that comes that magic of here's a plan, here's a vision, here's a way to do it. At least that's how I've approached all the nonprofits and my business career.
Jordan?
Yes, sir.
You're a dreamer.
Yes.
If you could dream and this all turned out, so this facility could stay open and be useful, what do you need?
We need one of these politicians to stand up and say, you know what, I'll take the lead. I'll call my counterparts. Okay. K-Turan, come on in. Central City Concern. Here's what should really happen. Okay. One of these politicians should say, we're going to form a blue ribbon committee. We don't have all the answers. A lot of us have doubts about this facility being used. That's fair. Bring in the president of the University of Portland, okay? Brilliant man. Have him head up a 12, 15-person commission. Bring in the heads of Providence and Legacy hospital systems. Bring in a few of the wonderful survivors that were on the street. The people who were on the street that now are productive members of society. Bring in Volunteers America, Central City Concern, Transition Projects. Bring in a couple downtown business people. Okay, bring in OHSU and Portland State and University of Portland. And say, you guys have 90 days. You have all the resources. First, we want for you to account for all the wonderful providers and all the positive things that are being done. Let's praise what is being done. Let's let the public know every day the thousands of people that organizations like Volunteers America are taking care of. and then tell us best practices of what's being done in Seattle and in San Francisco and LA that are appropriate for this community. I mean, I was appointed to head up the Light Rail Commission that brought light rail to Portland. Then I was asked to head up the commission about where it would go once it got here. I mean, this is what we do. This was decades ago, I've done other ones since. That's the way we work best. And there's an obligation for all of us in the private sector, no matter what station of life, to give back and be involved in commissions and, okay. The neighborhood association, we have some representatives here. We have 94 neighborhood associations that are amazing, talking about power to the people. Those are the people, those are the neighborhoods, that's where we live. They need to do a better job saying, we'll commit to start taking some of these folks into our neighborhoods. I'd call the bishop of, well, the Episcopal bishop of 70 parishes. I've talked with the Bishop Henley. I've talked to board of rabbis. I want to find some Muslim groups, the Catholic Church, and say there's probably 250 churches in our metropolitan area. Each one of them should say, we'll do our best. We've got parking lots. We'll all put 2 small little houses in our parking lot. We'll bring our sisterhoods and brotherhoods in to start working with, in essence, our neighbors. Now, the people to be placed in those would be the ones that the professionals say are appropriate for those facilities. Okay? Let neighbor to neighbor and citizen to citizen reach out and help take care of others in need. There's that statement that there for the sake of God go I, right? Especially those of us a little older. There are lots of times that tsunami-like things can happen in our lives that surprise us. Most of us are lucky enough to have friends, family that help us get through those periods. Some are less fortunate. Your wife leaves you, your job gets fired, your mortgage, your house gets repossessed, suddenly you're on the street or in a car. Okay, they need a helping hand. And that's not just from them, that should be from all of you and me and everybody else. That's what really builds a community. That's the community we are proud of now and want to continue to be proud of. What message are we sending to our children when they see all these homeless people? What, they're just nothing? Okay.
2 months until you tear it down?
We're getting bids coming in beginning next week from 3 demolition companies. It's going to be $1 million+ to tear it down. A lot of concrete here. And we're going to donate whatever we can out of it to any nonprofit that can use any of it. But and then there's about a 9-month construction period. Now, on the business side of this, we reached out first to Metro, showed them what we're doing. They said you were one of the first developers ever come in to tell us all these things. We then reached out to the port that controls the property. Then we reached out to the Bybee Lakes Association and laid out how we're making this as ecologically friendly as we can. We're putting glass in that birds won't hit. We're putting low lighting. We're painting the whole building on the side green so it fits in and won't reflect the light so that the turtles and salamanders and the natural order can do as well as it can. We wanted to put some bird blinds and open up more to the public, but the port doesn't want to do that because they're developing another area of Bybee Lake over on the other side that'll be more accessible. So we pulled back on more of the amenities we were going to put in for the public. We are going to put some poles up with nests and things that are pretty fun to have birds nest there. Any other questions? And I'll let the people behind me talk. Anything else?
Kind of straightforward.
Yes, sir.
You're frustrated.
The business side of me says get on with it. Just politicians, you want it torn down? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. We'll get it torn down. Can't wait to build a warehouse. We love this. Okay, walking in here, the heart of me says, you got to be kidding. I'm seeing tent people on my parking lot. Okay, and they could have beds here and have training here and have clean bathrooms and showers. Okay. Okay, and half the people we understand, and Daryl Turner can probably give us the statistics, we understand half the people on the street are drug addicts and have a drug and alcohol problem. Okay? Police aren't equipped to deal with that. They need to be in facilities like this. I think you'll hear from Kay Turan. This is a perfect location. The friends that I have, as all of you I'm sure have, that are former, well, they're always an alcoholic, always a drug addict, even if they haven't touched it in 25 years. What they tell me is the last place those recovery programs need to be are downtown, where there's an alcohol or drug dealing going on in the corner. Okay? So yes, am I frustrated? I'm frustrated with me that I didn't do a better job in looking back of coalescing some more people, whatever. Okay, we can always look back and think we could have done a better job. I'm so proud of the people that have worked on this. I'm disappointed that we weren't able, I wasn't, however, to bring the political process, the providers, and a lot of us together to make this fulfill what the voters spent money for, and that would be something that takes care of people in the community. All right. Thank you. And Kay, do you want to take the lead? And as I said, this is, I just put her on the pedestal I put her on. She'd be banging her head on the ceiling. We are so lucky to have her. 23 years at Volunteers of America. And why don't you tell them how many people every day do you take care of and who you take care of now?
Let me just tell you who we are. Kate Turan, President and CEO of Volunteers of America, Oregon, and we're a broad-based human service organization. Let me start with why we got involved in this. After Jordan bought this facility, he gave me a call and said, what would Volunteers of America do if you had access and the opportunity to provide services here? I saw that as a fabulous visioning opportunity, went to my board, they said, yes, let's take it on, went through a visioning exercise and came up with the proposal that some of you have today. We anchored our proposal with residential treatment. That is one of our core competencies. We have a men's and women's residential treatment center that is producing outcomes that are stellar, not only for Portland and Oregon, but for the nation. I asked 3 of our graduates to be here with us today. Jerome Gillum, you want raise your hand. John Keller, raise your hand. And Kelly Goss. These are individuals that demonstrate that with evidence-based practices, alcohol and drug treatment work. And if you couple that with housing and employment, we're sure that those individuals will continue to be clean and sober and go on with their lives. And they are what I call the personification of hope. So we put together our proposal anchored by treatment. We also said that we would bring our social enterprise into this operation, which is catering for a cause. We also said we would look at programs like domestic violence, vocational training, bring them in and use about 85,000 square feet of this building. But in addition, talk to other providers who we work with daily, healthcare providers, and say, would you consider coming into the facility as we open it up? And to a provider, to a healthcare organization, they said yes. So we believe that this facility can become a wellness resource center for our entire community, and we have been operating with that kind of a belief and that kind of a proposal and that kind of a plan. What nonprofits need, what Volunteers of America needs specifically, are sustainable funds for the operation, and we go to government for that. So we can't start a program with private sector dollars. We could for 1 year, 2 year, but for the long term, we need to depend on government dollars. And so that's where we are right now. We did submit a proposal to Multnomah County to fund the alcohol and drug treatment. They have been funding very successfully the alcohol and drug treatment program that we have. We have 50 beds for men, 50 beds for women. We turn that over twice a year. So what we had said that over a year we would serve 200 people in alcohol and drug treatment. Even today, and I do understand and recognize Mr. Schnitzer's frustration. He's a businessman, and I have an appreciation for that. But as I stand before you here today, I still, because I'm a social worker, am optimistic that this community will rise up and see the value of this particular property in terms of making a contribution to the problem crisis, really, of homelessness in our community. One of the great conversations that I had is with the president of the University of Portland, which is 10 minutes away from here. They have a school of nursing which is nationally recognized. And when I talked about what our dream and our hope was for this facility, they took a tour and they said, yes, we're there. We would be willing to partner with whomever to provide those kind of nursing services, to help with the healthcare access, and also with educational programs from the School of Business, School of Engineering, which is, again, nationally recognized. So there is possibility and opportunity in this community. We simply need to get to those folks that can give the dollars to an organization like Volunteers of America so that we have that sustainability and others will come in and do what is necessary. It's a fabulous opportunity that if we let escape us, shame on Portland, shame on Oregon, and shame on us being such a disappointment to those individuals who depend on people such as ourselves to provide the services that they need. I'm going to ask if any of the 3 would like to step up and say anything. Jerome, John, Kelly?
Keller. I'm John Keller, and I'm a Volunteers of America alumni. I've been clean and sober 23 years, this Christmas coming. And Kate probably doesn't want me, and she's probably got nothing to do with this, but to me it does. I worked on this facility in 1998, and there is no way that out of the 1,000 beds, they took 600 beds that were made for recovery people and just squashed it, turned it all into prison. Never got used for 20 years. I very disappointed in my heart that nobody cares about it. I would be one of those homeless people on the streets Mr. Schnitzer was talking about had it not been for VOA. I didn't understand my problem. I knew I had a drinking problem and a drug problem. Benson graduate. I was raised properly through the churches, but I got caught up and I couldn't understand how in the heck I got into this and didn't know how to get out. VOA helped me with people like myself. Al Fortham was my process counselor. I got to meet guys like Kelly and a few others, and there's a bunch of us that are clean and sober. But Portland has a problem and it needs to be addressed. There was no homeless in 1998. All of a sudden, you got this big umbrella of a mess because nobody cares. I'm not a real estate magnate. I'm not a politician, but I am a successful and a productive member of society. You know, I own real estate. I bought homes after I got clean 2 years. I knew how to do it, but I couldn't put it together because I couldn't stay clean long enough, and I didn't know what my problem was. So when it's neglected, it's detrimental to the community. I'm really saddened what I see today. And being a taxpayer, I'm really saddened about this building. You know, you guys, they came in and they tore out all the walls and just changed the whole scenario. Well, I didn't mind. You're paying me well, extra 6 months worth of work for nothing, period. Anyway, I won't hold it up, but that's who I am, and I've been successful in helping people in recovery. At my church, I ran a recovery program for 12 years, and most enjoyable part.
My name's Kelly Goss. I'm a graduate of VOA. I'm 70 years old, and I've lived in Portland my whole life. I remember when there were strawberry fields on 122nd and Burnside. So, having said that, I'm also an Old Town dope fiend that used for about 25 years of his life. And now I'm in real estate. I'm a millionaire, which is kind of weird to say in front of you all. I've sold 6 houses in the last 5 years. But what I want to tell you is that this facility, you know, you take away the bars, put some rugs in here, some bright paint, some people that care about other people, and some love, and this thing will work. You know, that's the bottom line, it'll work. And I think the more people that sign up and get involved, the more that other people will be attracted to it. And pretty soon it'll be a full-fledged facility that helps a lot of different entities, you know, and they need help. You know, if you put together all the money that the government and the state and the city spend just cleaning up, mental health things, crime, those kind of things, you put that money together and pool it here in a facility like this, and it'll help. It'll just help. Now, like I said, I've been clean 27 years. You know, I came from a lot of different sewers and gutters, went through a lot of prisons, did all that kind of stuff, and then I went to VOA. And what I'll tell you is that VOA was the one that changed my life, you know, and I've been clean the longest of anybody from that program. But every program that I went through, Alpha House, CODA, Freedom House, you know, every one of them, there was a point to where I learned something and got something from that program before I finally gave up, you know, and went back out to my addiction. You know, my life has changed, and it was VOA that got me on the road. I'm just going to tell you guys, you know, there's people out there that need help. You know, needs need. That's what it is. It's need. Whatever the cause, they need help. And as long as we keep ignoring this and trying to spend more money than utilize the things that we already have, which this facility, like I said, with a little bit of love in this facility and some people that are involved and care, this thing will change. You'll probably get a lot of people to just volunteer here, let alone pay wages, you know. So, you know, I just don't understand why, and I think there's some fears with politicians and stuff. I don't understand why they don't jump on this, you know. I just tell you, you know, my life has changed. I've got 30 tenants in facilities that I pay for, and I was homeless at one time. You know, I had nothing. Nobody gave me anything. You know, I had a desire to stay clean. Opportunity presented itself. I had the funds that I had saved to take advantage of that opportunity, and my life has been blessed. And I help other people. I care about other people. And that's what it comes down to. Do we care about other people? We can reach them if we try. That's it.
Hi, I'm Jerome Gilgan. I'm also an addict, and I started drinking at like age 10. So I was an alcoholic first, teenage alcoholic. I was on the streets at 15 in New Jersey, came out here to Oregon, continued my run with alcohol, drugs. By the time I was 21, 18, I became a 21-year methamphetamine user, heroin user. I was in and out of prisons. I've been in and out of treatment centers also. But I do know one thing is, a couple of treatment centers I went to, like Kelly had said, you know, I learned something, but not until I got into Volunteers of America. And I believe in Volunteers of America Men's Residential Center more than anything. That's where my heart is. I'm not only a client from there, now I'm in management there, because they gave me that opportunity. The treatment centers, and the reason I believe in these is because it didn't just make me a better person, I've become a better human being because of Volunteers of America, because of what they've given me. I think that there's a lot of people out there, and it's about second chances, and it's about sometimes 3 chances. But the thing is, to have the options to get those chances need to be met. And I think that this place would meet those needs. I think that there's many, many people who just go through this revolving door because there isn't enough people who care and have that heart and want to just give, as I got from Volunteers of America in the program that we run there. Like I said today, you know, I'm a father. You know, I raised 2 children by myself, and I've done that since I started at Volunteers of America. And my children are teenagers, graduating, and have a good life, only because of what I've gained from treatment, from Volunteers of America, and from having more than one chance at treatments. Closing here, I mean, I look, and when I walked in here, I was like, oh, wow, man, I feel like I've been here before, right? And I think about how many people with this kind of an option would want to change their lives. You know, and something that Kelly was saying, and I thought about this piece, you know, if, you know, these people, anybody would just volunteer a time of their life, a month, that would take care of so many people each day of becoming healthier, you know, having options for employment. You know, when I think about homeless and I think about people with addictions, you know, they can't get jobs. A lot of times they don't have no address, no IDs, no nothing. You know, they could have an address here to get an ID, to get a job, to be successful, to be a part of the community, because they are part of our community. I don't care who they are, who anybody is. We're a community in Oregon, and especially Portland, is a beautiful community. And I think that we should be taking care of everybody as the human beings we're supposed to be. And I think that that's by giving this place an opportunity and chance and helping us fund the beds to have people with addictions come here and get that opportunity and a second chance at life, or a third, or whatever it takes. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Jerome.
I'll just say one more comment to wrap up. First, I think we should give them all a hand. They are just an example of the quality, the high quality of work that's done by Volunteers of America. So our proposal was anchored with alcohol and drug treatment. In addition to that, in working with law enforcement, we created a professional intake center that would work with law enforcement who's arresting people, booking them, putting them in jail, releasing them, only to arrest them again the next night. If they had an intake center here that actually was able to connect those individuals with services, employment services, mental health counseling, health services, we would be much more productive in terms of giving people that opportunity to get their lives back on track. This should be a wellness center for our community. And I won't stop until I know that we can't make it happen. But you can help us get the message out there, is that this could be a tremendous resource for all of those people that are homeless, and to add to the continuance of the service delivery system for our community. So thank you.
And in your packets, the proposal that K-Tran came up with was 15 pages, totally detailed, totally costed out, what wings they'd use, what staff they'd use. I mean, this wasn't that they put months of time into working on this from a proven provider. Amazing. And as long as we're talking, if before that wrecking ball starts, if Kay can put together a program, even though we're barreling ahead to do these warehouses, we will donate the facility to her. Well, the whole $6-7 million, we'll donate it to Volunteers of America. But we've got to have a plan in writing that's funded and where those sources of funds come from. But my gosh, we'll donate the whole project to them, to that use. Anyway, Daryl, wonderful, the head of the police union.
Well, I don't know if I can top that now, so I won't try. I had a written statement, but I decided not to use it. I'm proud to be here with the people that are here today, especially these three gentlemen right here, because they are living proof that a facility like this can change lives. I'm proud to be here because we worked very hard these last few years to try to get enough people together, especially through our elected officials, to agree that Wapato facility could be changed to a community wellness center and could be a place that would, it was meant to incarcerate people, but now we can revitalize people in this place. That didn't happen yet. I'm still hopeful. I know what Jordan said, you know, we had a couple more weeks, but I'm still hopeful that we can get something done. What I'd like to say is we've heard some of our elected officials talk about warehousing and that some of the people involved in this want to warehouse homeless people, and that's not true. I was born and raised in Newark, New Jersey in the 70s. I lived in the projects. I lived on the 19th floor of a project. There were 2 buildings, there were 20 stories each. I lived on the 19th floor. When the elevators didn't work, I had to walk up and down those stairs, past drug dealers, drug addicts, prostitution, gangs. I had to walk past all that. We had 1 basketball court and we had 1 set of swings. That's called no resources. Okay, there were no resources. This is called warehousing. They were warehousing people of color to make sure they knew where we were, what we were doing, and no resources to do anything else. That's not Wapato. This place would be a community wellness center that would provide job resources, that would provide addiction resources, mental health resources, veterans resources, all those things in one place. This is not to take the place of anything that's already out there. There's a lot of great resources out there. This is to help complement and also take some of the pressure off of some of the resources out there that are overwhelmed. These tax dollars that were paid to build this facility, the $58 million, plus like Jordan said, the maintenance costs probably came up to about $100 million over the years, is taxpayer dollars. Those taxpayer dollars built it, maintained it, yet when it was sold by our elected officials, it was sold, number one, at a 90% discount, but not only that, they never went back to those same people who paid the taxes to build this facility, to maintain this facility, said, what do you want done with this? I can guarantee you that if we had to put this on a ballot measure right now, 80% of the people in Multnomah County, of which one I am, would vote to repurpose this to a community wellness center to help with our problem of homelessness. This is not to warehouse people. This is to help people. This is to revitalize people, revitalize their lives in a way they thought they never could, to give them a successful off-ramp to society. Because when they talk about building affordable housing, and it takes 2 to 3 years to build affordable housing, where are the people who are on the streets right at that point in time when they start building? They're out on the streets. This is a place, this is a facility that can fit 500 to 600 people. Cooking facilities, medical facilities, exercise facilities, a beautiful outdoor campus. There's a place in San Antonio called Harbor for Hope. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars to build a new campus. We already have this building here. Taxpayers paid for this building. Why did our elected officials not go to the taxpayers and say, what do you want to do with this? It's called democratic society. I know we have one commissioner, county commissioner, that tried to identify this as some of the things that Donald Trump is saying we should do with the homeless. We've been talking about this for 2-3 years. This is not, she can throw out the Trump card if she wants, but this is a place that a lot of people came together, coalesced, tried to get more people together to build a facility that had a humanitarian effort behind it, of compassion, dignity, and respect for those people who are out there on the street every day. As a 28-year veteran of the Portland Police Bureau, I go out every day, I used to go out every day before I was union president, and I would repeatedly deal with the same people, repeatedly arrest the same people for low-level offenses, trespass, low-level drug offenses, drinking in public. We should not be putting people in jail who don't have places to live. We should not be putting people in jail who have addiction issues. We should not be putting people in jail just to move them off the streets. We should have a place that they can go, that they can be safe, that they can get the help they need, the resources they need, and like I said, have that successful off-ramp to society. We don't have that anywhere in the city of Portland. Portlanders pride themselves on thinking outside of the box. Our elected officials pride the city of Portland for thinking outside of the box. This is outside of the box, yet we're not doing it. I am like Jordan, I'm sickened when I come into a facility like this and look at this, and I've been in this many times, many years. We used to do training in here for police. We used to do training in here. And so I've come here many times, and I always said, why aren't they using this for something? What can they use it for? And we came up with this idea, and Kay Turan, Jordan Schnitzer, and a lot of people in this room that are standing around were in these meetings. We're sitting down, trying to put our heads together to figure out a way to get our local politicians to send the money here, to bring the money in to be able to open up this facility. And in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, whatever it takes to get this place open, and that's what should be done, and that's what should have been done. We've lost faith in our elected officials because these are the type of things that happen that we cannot understand, we cannot explain. But I can tell you this is the type of place that we could open up, that we could be different from everybody else in the country, that we could be a leader. So everybody else in the country could look and say, look what they did. They took a building that was meant to incarcerate, and they regenerated people's lives. They took a building that had a roof over it, that had heat, that had bathrooms, that had facilities to take care of people. They took them out of the doorways, from under the bridges, from out of the parks, and all those other places that they have to live right now, and brought them into a place that was warm, that was safe, that gave them a purpose and built up their self-esteem. That's what we need to do at Wapato. That's what our elected officials need to stand up and do. It hasn't been done. I am a taxpayer, and I want that done. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
As I mentioned, we own about 15, 18 properties downtown. We appreciate every day the police come right on time. And what's interesting is they know by first name most of the people in the tents that are around our properties because they've had to deal with them time and time and time again. And it breaks my heart they don't have resources, a place like this or somewhere else where they can take people instead of the in and out revolving door that they're dealing with now. Jeff Geisler is head of the Hayden Island Neighborhood Association. He called last week and said, can we help? I said, why don't you go take a look at it? So he's going to tell you about the 30 or 40 other neighborhood association heads that came through it in this last week and what his thoughts are.
Hi, I'm Jeff Geisler. High Noon is the name of our Hayden Island Neighborhood Network, and we're one of 94 neighborhoods in the city. We do something a little bit different that I've been encouraging the other neighborhoods to do is we go and talk to every homeless person that comes to the island. And we ask them, will you accept help? Will you volunteer for some help? We'll find you some help. But I have not in 1 year had one person say yes. So they're used to the revolving door where maybe they get arrested or whatever, they're back on the street. And sometimes they're miles away from where they have to go to get their tent back. But I offered to Jordan probably about 3 weeks ago an email on a Sunday that there's 94 neighborhoods. We're all involved in this homeless issue. There's homeless people in every neighborhood, and maybe I could get them all together and help get people behind this facility because he's been so frustrated in doing that. I have all their emails and I'm willing to send that out. But after visiting the facility and realizing it's so much different than what I thought it was, according to the press that I'd read, it's ideal for, it's like it's 9 segments. You can have children, you can have women, you can keep people separated. But what Kay has done, if you read this brochure, I mean, he's basically done what the city should do, is lay out a plan for services, for rehabilitation, for getting people back into the community, to have jobs, job training, a medical facility. There's still an x-ray machine on campus right here. You could even have people with tents, bring their tents out in the yards. I mean, you could probably, I don't even know if I want to say this, but you could have those buses and those RVs parked in that parking lot. But at least it would be a transition. But I'm only here because I represent the volunteers that are called neighborhood associations. And those are all wonderful people. We get about $1,000 a month from the city. That doesn't anywhere near cover the costs of running a neighborhood association. But we do it because we have a passion for keeping our neighborhood livability. And that's what we're all about. And we want to extend that livability to these people that we see on our streets. So that's all I have to offer. Thanks.
Lastly, we have Don Mazziotti, that for a number of years, there are so many projects in this community that have helped build this community that his quiet hand was behind in terms of city planning and development and so forth. And he's been a real treasure for our community. He's been working with Homer Williams. Homer Williams I've known for almost 40 years, some of the biggest developments in our city, Forest Park Estates, the Pearl District. He's been a visionary, and I'm so proud of him that now he is so passionate and devoting his life to helping people on the street. And they'll both talk to you about the Harbor of Hope and the latest facility they opened and their ideas and dreams. Don and Homer?
I don't know where Homer is, but I'll go first. So, thanks for coming, everyone. Just want to note that October 10th is, we celebrate World Homeless Day today, worldwide, which is a corollary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which governs how we should treat each other. I want to say a couple of things quickly. First, my admiration to the generosity and time and effort that Jordan Schnitzer put into, and patience, that put into a process willing to look at alternatives which have been presented, evaluated, created. May not work out, but it's not Jordan's fault. In fact, we're here because of him. Otherwise, this facility might not exist at all today. Second, I want to acknowledge Kay Turan's work. Volunteers of America is a great organization, one which Harbor of Hope certainly collaborates with, as we do with many other nonprofit organizations, especially organizations of faith, which is extremely important, as Jordan has already mentioned. The building may come down. I just do want to say publicly that the vision of a transportation and wellness center of this magnitude and size, that vision continues to be the vision of Oregon Harbor of Hope. We will not stop. We will not back away. We will continue to fight for a place other than a shelter, other than the streets for people to be restored on. And finally, I want to speak on my own behalf as a public servant for a long period of time. I want to talk about the notion that the mantra of housing first and the characterization of this facility and others as warehouses is a misuse of the English language. The reality is, this is not a warehouse. This is a place where people could be restored to health, dignity, and return to meaningful jobs and a productive life. That's our vision, and that's what we will continue to pursue. So to the thousands of homeless people on our streets tonight, we propose that they gather below the Burnside Bridge at night strike, every Thursday night, incidentally. But tonight gather because Oregon Harbor of Hope will provide its shower truck that navigates the city every day to provide showers to those who have no such facilities, to offer food and clothing and care to those who have no place to go. Jordan, again, thank you for all that you've done. And I'd like to ask my colleague and partner, Homer Williams, to say a couple words.
Well, hello. Well, enough's been said about Wapato. I think, and I'll be brief because everybody says I'm not brief enough. But homeless, we know the numbers, the HUD numbers are bogus. We now have an idea of the magnitude of the numbers, and I think many of us have felt this all along. But I think an important thing to remember is that there are many shades of gray of homelessness. We have children that aren't in the HUD count, thousands of them that don't have an address. We have students at Portland State, again, thousands of them, no address, they're homeless. We have in the Navigation Center, 55 and older people on the street that now have a safe place to sleep. Over 40% have jobs. So there's many, many other shades, as I said. In fact, the chronic homeless is by far the smallest group of homeless. And so any facility, whether it's the National Guard Armory in Multnomah, whether it's this, whether it's whatever else we can find, we need to take and utilize. It doesn't have to be necessarily everywhere that these are full service transformation centers. We just need places that are dry, that are safe, that have bathroom facilities and water that these people can live in, just be safe. And so I really wish that the discussion would go way beyond what we often think of as the homeless. It's a much bigger group, much more diverse. Thank you.
Are there any last questions? And we'll wrap up, and appreciate all of you here. And I figured by having all these different speakers, you'll edit and use different segments for whatever your purposes are.
I did have one clarification. So is the Port of Portland that will be running? I just want to make sure I understand who is actually running this facility. And I don't think I fully got that.
Well, no, we own the facility, so we're paying all the taxes, insurance, and maintenance on it. But the property is in Rivergate, which the Port of Portland controls, and therefore when the county decided to operate this facility, they had to get a conditional use approval from the port to put a non-conforming facility in the Rivergate area. That was done. There was a good neighbor agreement. That's been in place for 20 years. From a port standpoint, I think we've talked with them. If there were a way for us to repurpose this facility that was well-run, organized, safe, they would be delighted. At the same time, their job is to help people like us develop warehouses to create employment for the community. But we've gotten not an official approval, but strong messages of support that the port would support the continuation of a non-conforming use that was well run and organized, especially by a group like Volunteers of America that has a sterling reputation.
I mean the warehouse, when it's built.
Yes.
So you have any tenants for sure?
No, this would be a spec warehouse. Of the 5 million feet of warehouses we've built, we've only done one 60,000-foot build-to-suit. So we build warehouses on the speculation there will be tenants when it is completed.
Jordan, I just had a point to maybe make.
Do you want to come talk to them, Pete?
No, you were going to know the answer. And Daryl as well. So wasn't this facility originally constructed to be a transitional situation, not a permanent jail?
Yes.
So the repurposing for transition for the community wellness center is really just continuing on with the way this was built.
Yes.
That's how it was constructed.
The question from Pete Northrup, who's done a good job trying to raise the visibility of this project to a lot of business leaders, was it was designed not as a long-term incarceration facility, but as a transitional facility. That's why there are no cells here. Oh, there's some bars here just for the residential thing, but there's no locks and I mean, it's a secure facility, but it was a transitional facility. So his point is, if it were transitioned from people being short-term incarceration to a transition facility as a wellness center, it still meets within the spirit of the original intent. Anything else?
Are you hoping for a reaction from the elected officials that you've kind of taken to task here?
My heart walking out of here, when we leave this in a minute walking out, I will still have the same incredulous reaction that with all this steel and concrete, all the showers, the intake facilities, the recreation areas, the 5-6 acres in the back that could be used for recreation, growing organic vegetables as a training program, whatever. I cannot believe that I've not been able to find someone that could come up with a program that would meet with the vision of our elected officials to say, boy, we didn't look at it that way, but now that we see it in that light, by gosh, this could be a huge part of the additional issue of people on the street. And I'll look back once this is torn down and say, wow, I still can't believe that we together couldn't figure this out. At the same time, my other voice says, what, you can wait another year, and look back and say you were really an idiot. Okay, now you spent, $2 or $3 million of holding costs. Better to get it going and get the warehouse going while the market's still strong and move ahead. So, I mean, I've got two voices. I've said to my staff, I generally have two voices about a lot of things. As long as I don't get a third voice, they're probably okay. And I will say for all of you press that have been here, often more times than many of us, you have your own opinions about it too, and you all follow the city and the politics and everything more than many of us. Somehow, cosmically, we haven't quite had the right alignment, and I still don't understand why. Okay?
So to answer your question, the Schnitzer organization, you've given me a letter of intent to lease the Wellness Center of Portland. So I'm looking or helping to organize $5 to $50 million from the private sector to sign this lease. So that would put pressure on the public to maybe fund it.
As I've said, the intent was something comes in that is viable, we'll look at that. I'm not trying to be duplicitous here, but I mean, my heart still says that this should serve the public. And I love the real estate business. I love warehouses, but there are lots of other sites for warehouses. Look at it this way. If Kay Tran came up with this idea, and Homer and Don Mazziotti, and said, we want to build a wellness center for 500 people, and we just need $70 or $80 million, that'd be a pretty tough proposition to take to the voters right now. We've got a $70 or $80 million facility right here now, okay? And I think, as we said, the characterization that this is a prison is, maybe that's politically expedient for some folks. It's not a prison. Second, it took us 14 minutes to get here from downtown, okay? 14 minutes. To say this isn't a bad location, what? This whole neighborhood out here isn't good? University of Portland's in the wrong place? Come on now. Okay, and not in a mean way, but where is it that somehow there's a right for homeless people to occupy the streets of downtown Portland? I mean, in terms of balancing the fairness of all the citizens. But what'll happen will happen. Maybe something miraculous out of this will be a call to action where we'll get the right call and try to figure it out. The time's running out, though. I'm not trying to manipulate anybody. It's just that I'd rather be giving those holding cost dollars philanthropically than paying interest expense on a vacant building. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.